you hear some similar points throughout all of these talks, and I hope we can have a good discussion about it afterwards. This question, what road to socialism? Really, it could be reframed in a lot of different ways, but I think it should, based on the catastrophic collapse of human and animal and the global climate, we could really be phrasing this as basically, which road to the survival of life on Earth in a serious way? If you've seen some of these stories, this is a real fundamental question, and guess what, comrades? We're running out of time to answer this. So what's the fastest road to socialism? Can we build a bridge to Cuba? Just kidding. How are we going? Is there a shortcut that we can take to socialism? Well, comrades, of course, there is no shortcut down the road to building socialism. We've seen massive upsurges in Haiti, in Lebanon, just recently Bogota, right? It's in El Alto. We're seeing this in countries all over the world. The people are in the streets against neoliberal capitalism and the historic impacts of imperialism, right? And today. While these massive uprisings are tremendous, and we are certainly taking a lot of strength from them and very exciting, we know that these forces will not be defeated without a strong revolutionary communist party with deep ties to the masses. And we're hoping that those situations are developing into revolutionary situations so that people could take that energy from the streets into transforming, completely overthrowing capitalism and creating an entire new economy and political system. It's an exciting time. Even here in the United States, we had the Chicago teachers who successfully struck and really made the community and racial justice demands central to their strike. And we're following their lead and many of these other successful strikes. The GM strike, the longest strike since the 70s. We're seeing an upsurge in our movements, and we're seeing an upsurge in socialism. You may have read the Workers' World editorial, but 70% of millennials would want to vote for a socialist. This is even better. You can apply that. 1/3 of millennials are for communism. That's up 8% in 1 year. In 1 year, what happened? That's a lot of memes. That's a lot of gritty. No, I'm kidding, but it's in 1 year, 8% jump, right? Where something is happening, especially to the youth of our class. Something is developing. Right? 35% of millennials view Marxism favorably. 20% believe that the world would be better if private property were abolished. That is our 20%, and we need to see these folks in this room. We need to meet these folks. We need to build these. That is part of the road to socialism, and so it's a very exciting time. This is the youth of Black Lives Matter, of Occupy, of the global climate strike. These are the youth facing a declining life expectancy and a crumbling, racist, genocidal empire that's on its way down. While socialism is growing more popular, we can't deny the fact that white supremacist fascism, organized by the President of the United States, is also on the rise. As these constant terrorist attacks and organizing that the right is doing, we have to outdo them. They are getting ready, and we need to take this task, just life or death, seriously because of how organized the right wing is. Think about it. We're in a country based on genocide. We're in a country based on white supremacy. The fascists have can just tie themselves to the history of this country and organize. And so we have to do something even more difficult, which is to challenge the kind of white settler colonial racist history of this country. And then we're going to do that. We have to show that we have the answers. We need to make it clear how we are different than, what is the difference between socialists and communists? We got to make that pretty clear. Through our ideological effort, but most importantly, our work in the struggle, we need to show that we have the answers. Now, comrades, the Social Democrats, they do have a road to socialism, they think. This road is through elections, and we happen to know that this road is a dead end. I'm going to give an example. Many of you might be following this, but I'm going to kind of go through it a little bit more in depth. One of the most clear programs, kind of social democracy, was published recently by the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, led by a man named Jeremy Corbyn. Do you guys know who this person is? A little bit? You've been following it, maybe? Brexit. Leading up to this December 12th parliamentary elections, Corbyn dropped what he called the most radical program ever. That's what he called it, the most radical platform ever for social democracy. Well, this program may look radical today in a period of neoliberalism. It's really not that radical. It's kind of classic social democracy. And it's going to be popular. It's clear it's going to be popular. And I mean, he's promising a Green New Deal, 1 million green unionized jobs. Sounds good, right? He's talking about, expanding the National Health Service, expanding funding for education, creating a minimum wage of something like $13 an hour, increasing workers' rights, union organizing rights, and ending precarity at work. The entire program, actually, if you read it, it makes Sanders look kind of like a centrist. It's interesting. And really, honestly, Jeremy Corbyn could win. He could at least be get the most votes and have a plurality in the UK elections, which are on December 12th. And it would be an interesting step forward, but where will it lead? Especially if the masses are not in the streets. Can he win any of these things through an election? Or do there need to be general strikes to expand the minimum wage? General strikes to fight back, to defend the National Health Service? Where are the masses? As far as I can tell, I don't see mass movement in Britain or any of it, even despite this program. But British social democracy, and we're going to kind of get into explaining a little bit of the difference between our route to socialism and their route. British social democracy, just like the one here in the United States, has two serious problems. Number one is its support and reliance on imperialism, and number two is its utter and important defense of the police and the military. Let's look at this program. So you might know, Jeremy Corbyn, right? He is seen as an anti-war figure. He actually flew himself to the 2003 Answer Coalition demonstration that we organized in Washington, D.C. to be a speaker, to say, people in Europe are also against the United States war in Iraq, right? Jeremy Corbyn is held up. He's even called anti-Semitic because he stands with the basic human rights of Palestinians, right? There's just a vitriolic attack because he dares to say anything in favor of Palestine. Anything, right? But unfortunately, Labor's program and what Jeremy has put forth here is anything but anti-war and anything but the image that he has. Let's read a little bit of it. It says it's called New Internationalism. The first thing they want to do is to conduct an audit. This is a quote. On the impact of Britain's colonial legacy, to understand our contributions to the dynamic of violence and insecurity across regions previously under British colonial rule. So he's going to conduct an audit to see how bad did we really kill 1 billion people in India? Did we really ravage and destroy the world? You need to conduct an audit. If you'd search this document, not once do you see the word reparations. Never. Not once do you see the word reparations. In fact, it's modernizing empire. Here's another quote. We have a duty to stand up for the security and sovereignty of our overseas territories, including the Falklands. If you know what the Falklands are, they're an island outside of Argentina. He's saying we need to keep our colonies. Some things sound progressive, right? We need to stop sales of guns and weapons to Saudi Arabia. Well, guess what? He doesn't talk about stopping the sale of guns to Israel. He doesn't talk about stopping the sale of guns to any other country. It's just particularly Saudi Arabia. In fact, while he does call for an end to the blockade and occupation and settlements in Palestine, he also says there needs to be an end to the rocket and terrorist attacks of Palestine. He's saying that to defend yourself is a crime and that needs to stop. So, let's think back, though. The United Kingdom created Israel. It's responsible for the situation, utterly. They're not going to be able to fix this. And I mean, it's still an empire. There's other points here. I don't want to keep dragging you into this. It seems kind of painful, right? I mean, he wants more UN peacekeeping troops in places like Port-au-Prince in Haiti, where they're basically fighting back the Haitian resistance. He wants, labor supports the renewal of a trident nuclear deterrent. Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Stop the War Coalition. It was a big anti-war group in the United Kingdom. Now he's saying they want to keep the nuclear weapons pointing at Russia and China. He says the UK defense industry is world leading, and we need to continue working with them to expand it. They want to keep selling weapons, because guess what? Just like Sarah's pointed out in her books, this is an addiction for the capitalist companies. They need to keep expanding the war drive and the war economy, because they can't, the system will not continue to go. So these are parts of his program. And just to put the icing on the cake here, he says we need to increase the number of police by 2,000, blaming the conservatives for underfunding the police, which led to demoralization and a growth of crime. This is seriously in the most radical program in the history of social democracy. We're talking about more border patrol. Again, again blaming the Tories for reducing border patrol. We're seeing, right, the global working class doesn't exist for the Social Democrats, both in the United Kingdom, but also here. They do not matter. What matters is that they can bring back some of the fruits back to the workers of an imperialist country. That is where we differ. This is not a road to socialism, friends. This is a road to maintaining empire. Socialism will not be elected. It comes through a massive upsurge of the working class and the oppressed. Again, where are the strikes? Where are the demos for Corbyn in this program? Without a mass movement, none of these candidates are going to be able to get what they need, what they're saying they're going to do. And let's talk a little bit about 2020 elections here in the United States. It really has sucked all the air out of the room, along with the impeachment. Perhaps no one is more responsible for the growth of the popularity of socialism than Bernie Sanders. Sanders' program has connected many of these young radicals to and given the voice and said, I'm a socialist. This is what I stand for. And a lot of people are saying, oh, great. That's what I need to survive. I'm with you. In the unlikely event that Sanders wins the election, he would have to mobilize the working class. Where is that? Is the working class mobilized right now? Is his campaign calling for these demonstrations? Yet the ruling class is also in decline. It's not very likely to make compromises. It's more likely to repress, to smash working class solidarity and unity, and to get increasingly violent across the entire world. This is an animal it's running out of life. It's going to fight back. We've also seen these impeachment proceedings. Has anyone been watching these? One person. Now I'm sorry for you, actually. I mean, that is really, so the impeachment process, right? What has it done? It has taken all of did anyone even remember there was a debate for the Democrats on Wednesday night? No, because there was this freaking impeachment nonstop for the past week or several weeks, which it really does put Nancy Pelosi as the face of the Democratic quote-unquote resistance. Instead of Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, it is now Nancy Pelosi and that Schiff guy, or whatever it is. So they're really trying to move everything to the right. The message is clear. I already said this. So basically, what's also happening is that through this impeachment process, this is galvanizing Trump's base. This is making it seem like an illegitimate process. That's just a phony court that is going to basically provoke the growth of a fascist movement. If it's successful, which it's not going to be successful. It's going to go to the Senate, and there's no way it's going to be passed through there. But what's ultimately true about it is that all of the impeachment kind of making the elections move to the right and kind of taking all the air out of the elections is good for business. In the case of the next economic crisis, the ruling class wants more austerity. They want more blood. They want more privatizations. They want to ruin our lives. And they're going, and they certainly don't want Bernie Sanders in their way, or any movement that will challenge them, right? And that's basically the role of Trump, is to continue neoliberal capitalism and to smash the working class, smash any solidarity, smash any unity. And basically the Democratic Party at this point is enabling this. It's criminal. They're taking people out of the streets and putting them into this process, which is not really emancipatory or exciting or even interesting at all. In the case that real democracy does prevail and someone like Bernie Sanders wins, which is rare. I mean, how many U.S. elections has the person who's president actually won the election? Capital strikes, stock market collapses, capitalist sabotage, paired with fascistic mobilizations. That's what's going to happen if the masses aren't mobilized to defend and to build a struggle for all the rights and reforms that we need, right? I'm painting a gloomy picture, but I swear we're going to get somewhere better. So what is our response? What is our road to socialism? Another question might be, how do we defeat the incipient rise of fascism, of white supremacy, in a country built on genocide, and white supremacy, and anti-communism? Well, there's three parts that I'm going to highlight here, and a lot of them were already hit by Larry. First, let's talk about we need an ideological campaign to basically clarify our perspective. The second is we need to continue these mobilizations that we've been doing. And the third is something we call deep organizing, which the party has started to have a conversation about. Let's get there. So, first of all, we need an ideological initiative in which we clarify and highlight the party's program, how we differ from the Jeremy Corbyns and the Bernie Sanderses of the world. What does a real socialist look like? We did this to an extent in the 2016 presidential campaign, right, where we were probably the one group that was in the most solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the movements in the streets. Our clear message was the power is in the streets. It's not in these elections. We need to do this again with raising demands, like abolishing the police, really abolishing ICE, not just tearing it up and making everybody else do the work, abolishing it, tearing down the border wall, and making sure that people can come here if they need to. And also to abolish the Pentagon and pay global reparations. We need to explain why Medicare for all is not enough. The capitalists will still own the medicine. The capitalists will still own the hospitals. You're just billing that. You're just paying them, and they're going to gouge you. Even if it's a single-payer model, Medicare for all is not enough. We need to clarify that by abolishing capitalism, what we mean is working class control of the major industries of society. We're talking the stock market and finance, we're talking energy, transportation, everything that humans need, and our basic needs, needs to be owned by the people and planned, just like the 20% of people believe. We need to abolish private property. What does that mean? So we're going to clarify that. And we need to get this program into the hands of people. We need to talk about it, because it's popular. And people want something real. They don't want Joe Biden. They want something that they can feel, that actually speaks to their reality. We need to be everywhere that our class is, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's in the radio, whether that's at the local corner store. We need to be everywhere, and we need to be accessible and findable with our program. And in all of this, we do need to discuss, should we run an election campaign? Would that be helpful in doing this, or can we do this in another way? We need to have that conversation. But a program is not enough. We know electing a Democrat will not stop the U.S. empire from killing indigenous people in Bolivia or from destroying all human life on Earth. We know that we need to build this power that's in the streets. The party has successfully mobilized around several key struggles over the past year. We've built solidarity with migrants. We've defended Venezuela and Bolivia from U.S. colonizing. We have continued to support the upsurge in worker struggles here in the United States. We continue to build solidarity against racism and against mass incarceration and amplify the party's unique perspective on the centrality of the national question of fighting racism as a key component of the struggle for socialism here in the United States. but we need to be bolder. We need to continue to mobilize these, to have these big major mobilizations, which come at these key points. These need to be openly anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist, and also building global working class solidarity. Think about it. What about a global strike against imperialism? What about a global strike against the U.S. empire? What about organizing globally in some way that we can actually interact with our class on, and to say every worker in the world has a say in who runs the U.S. empire? This election is completely fraudulent because it impacts every worker all around the world. And guess what? Every worker should have a vote. Every worker in the world should have a vote on who runs the empire. Every time there's a crisis and the Democrats won't respond, we need to be in the streets. We need to be out there and we need to be leading it, and we need to be building solidarity and unity in our movement. Yet for the party to succeed, mobilizations are not enough. They're great, they're exciting. We're going to win people through mobilizations, we're going to win them through ideological initiatives, but we need something more. We need to sink our roots deeper in our class. The comrades, so we need to be seen as the best community organizers. We need to be seen as the most principled union fighters. And we need to be seen as the clearest, most respected thinkers and organizers. We need a strategy in which people will dedicate their lives to building the working class organizations which will carry out a revolution. What are we talking about? We're talking about the unions, we're talking about the people's assemblies, we're talking about the workers' assemblies, we're talking about the community organizations. We need to think big on what are the types of organizations, what are the communities and ways that we need to build. I think the question around migrant workers and youth is exactly right. These are the sectors of our class in motion, and we need to be in solidarity with them, and we need to bring them towards a revolutionary alternative. Deep organizing, the work of building relationships with the leaders of our class is our only and primary weapon. Finally, we need to continue to be the loudest voice for some type of Marxist-Leninist unity or solidarity with each other. We need to continue to be principled, non-sectarian, and building this kind of broader sense of kind of solidarity amongst fellow communist organizations. Our comrades in Bolivia, frankly, they deserve a lot better than a bunch of small communist organizations in the United States fighting each other over who's going to be in the front of the rally. They need real solidarity and real practical unity. And to end, I'll just say, let's not give up hope. We can do this. Demoralization can be the gravest of illness for a communist party. I believe that we will win. I hope you do too. You really, if you're in this room, you better. And let's build a workers' world, socialism or death. Make all these meetings happen and kind of get all the technical work and get us on the internet. And all the other comrades who are here serving us food and taking care of us and paying the bills and doing all the things that make an organization possible. I mean, frankly, we were talking about, what is it going to take to build a revolution? And it really, part of it was really, what does it take to build a party? Before I get there, I want to kind of take a step back on something. So I spent a good amount of my time talking about kind of attacking the program of Social Democrats. And I think that's important, and calling for an ideological struggle and clarifying, basically coming up with a new way to explain our politics over and over again in a way that's fresh and relevant and interesting and going to win. That's not going to be the ultimate thing that builds the party. It's important, but it's not the only, it really ultimately isn't what we really need to be in a way to do. We need to prove that we're a viable force. People join something because they think that it actually has a chance at winning, at doing what we fundamentally need to do, right? It's not just because we like what you say and how you say it. It's that we think that it's really viable and possible. And so we really need to be thinking about that for our organization. How do we build the party? And that's where I think that we get to this kind of deep organizing. It's not rocket science, honestly. When we say deep organizing, well, the first thing we're talking about is having one-on-one meetings for recruitment. It's sitting down with somebody who is involved in your local mass organization and finding time to get to know them and building with them and building that relationship, and then also winning them towards the perspective of the party and the need for a party. I think that is actually really what we're talking about with this kind of deep organizing. It's identifying people that we want to win to our organization. And I think it's so critical that we do that and really think more systematically about how we're recruiting and building Workers' World Party. And ultimately, though, people don't just come to us because of our ideology. They come to us because they trust us through the winning and fighting in these struggles. And I don't know, I think there's this question of kind of how we're building these mass organizations and how that's going to lead towards the building of the party. And I think, in Philadelphia, one thing that we're trying to do is to build some bridges with other organizations, but also come up with like exciting ways that young people can get involved. And one of the ways we're going to start to launch in January that I'm excited about is we're going to be launching a series of trainings in which we say, it's going to be a training called How to Unionize Everything. How to unionize your workplace, how to organize your community. And it's going to be with our allies and friends in different organizing capacities. And we're going to try to build through the Worker Solidarity Network a clear way for people to get involved. And I think that we'll see how this goes. It's another experiment in this period. But it gets onto that youthful, revolutionary energy where workers, the young people, especially in this precarious economy, they want their rights. They want to live. And so I think we're going to see an uptick in kind of unionization and struggles in the workplace that I think young people are seeing as particularly viable because of its relation to how capitalism as a system works and this whole question of surplus value and who owns the property. This question of proletarian democracy, it's kind of refreshing. I mean, it gets to the whole question of the fact that we live in a capitalist two-party dictatorship that is completely, and through the media and through everything about the corporate control, there is no such thing as democracy in this country, right? 5% of people decide which party is going to have, who the presidential candidate is going to be for each party. That is not democratic, fundamentally. Only the fact that, to be a third party on the ballot is next to impossible in most states. Without $1 million in the bank, it is so I think that we can initiate and think about how we can use true instruments of democracy. And I think the communist movement truly has been the most democratic movement in the history of the world. If you're talking about the Soviets, if you're talking about the people's assemblies, if you're talking about these gatherings of the Cuban Constitution, how they enact, literally tens of thousands of meetings with the people, with community organizations to build and draft a constitution. That is real democracy. And so I think there is kind of a cutting edge that we can use with that ideologically that I think could be interesting to people. Finally, I think this point of internationalism, it ultimately is one of our real strengths. And it's something that, to me, it's what won me to the party. It's what, I think a lot of the people who came into this movement came in through struggles where they identified with workers all around the world who are fighting U.S. imperialism. And I think it is essential to the role of communists in the center of the empire, is building that kind of anti-imperialist movement. And I think we're going to have to think about how do we build that and how do we continue to do so in a way that's exciting and multinational and builds that unity. So there's a lot of other struggles that we need to talk about. I'm just happy that we've had this, and I think ultimately we need to be getting deeper in these conversations about what is our strategy. 2020 will be pivotal, and we need to be up to the task. That's it.